And even though the Dogromag fight was shorter than hoped, the follow up being a cooldown chapter was as expected. Something that Mishima, as we've transitioned from weekly to bi-weekly, like the last part, you really felt that more weekly kind of transitionary chapter, like kind of goofy cooldown chapter bits was with Fairy now. Whereas since then, it's been more like this, where it will be like 70 to 80% kind of goofy stuff, but then like some sprinkles of actual plot and story progression. So it's not just a you know 2 weeks of waiting for a couple jokes and then the end. But I will say this one was definitely more valuable than say like after Drasil, where all of them were just having fun for a bit before Ferris started talking about foreshadowing stuff with Ellentir. Because this one I really just wanted to see the interactions between the different members. We saw it mostly from the female side, and then like a lot of really good insight from Selene, which I really liked about this chapter. But I was very much happy to see that so far. And right now, the thing with Masaki that has me very curious on is it feels like to me, this is at least just, an assumption based off of at least the bits I've seen, that maybe Mishima didn't really do anything with Masaki is because like all his plans for Masaki was from her as an ally perspective, where it's like Masaki in battle being this kind of pretty straightforward, just kind of like mean, ruthless she villain without nothing kind of really outstanding, was only because that's not like the primary aspects of her character. That's just like, essentially her aggressive side, which isn't the thing we would primarily like focus on seeing, which would be really cool because that was the weird thing to me with Misaki out of the four Dark Dragon Slayer Knights is Mishima gave like bits of their character to Haku, Kirin, and Suzaku, and gave us like more insight to make them less of just like a caricature and more like a full character, except for Misaki. But in these last two chapters, we've actually got some further expansion on her. It's been pretty good. And then Kiria as well. I'm very much happy with Kiria's bit in the chapter. It was done more of like a funny fan service thing, but I just really like the interaction between her and Lucy and where the relationship is at between where it started from them to where it's at now. I very much enjoyed the bits between Urza, Misaki, Kiria, and Lucy this chapter. That was something that I figured would eventually would occur, but it was one of those things where you're just kind of waiting for hopefully again this scene of two characters who were at one point aggressive enemies who are now pretty good, I would say decent allies. And on top of that, I actually think it makes sense for Diablos to have the whole like big bathhouse in their guild. Because one, it's like their guild is the number one wizard guild on the continent. So obviously they're gonna have the money, the funds, the size, and the ability to get this done. But it's like where Fairy Tail and Sabretooth have a pool, which is more leisurely, more for fun. I think a Dragon Slaying guild where the primary people are all going to be pretty much like direct in-fight combat wizards who are going to be getting melee hit on the regular and fight dragons. Them having essentially a bath is going to be super convenient for them. Like it's going to be one of those things where it's like, oh yeah. Like it would make sense if they had like a giant ice bath too, and it's just like they had went through this big setup thing to make sure that their muscles and their bodies could be, as well kept as they can in between missions and stuff. Because logically as well, when they're going to be at the state, they're coming back to the guild from a mission, so they're going to be in that kind of cool down, relaxing period themselves. Which again, I like that a lot, and it adds some bit of character as well to their guild and the style. And I've really I've really liked what Mishima has done with Diablos. This is just an extra little bit because it really plays on the whole misleading aspects of Diablos at the beginning. Whereas like at the beginning they seem like very just evil bad guys who are up to no good, some form of nefarious things. And, even their guild looks like some villain base, and then it's like we as we find out more about them, it's more of just the appearance, and then Now, where we have like more of the inside of their base, it looks more normal. It looks more of like just like it's like, oh, it just looks like they have like a badass kind of design of some cool skeleton, and they're in a little bit of a spooky land. But after that point, we have Urza's hair being fixed. Big fan of that. I am a big fan of the fact that we do not have the short-haired Urza anymore. I know some people liked it. I did not. When Wendy got her hair cut short way back in Tartaros, I was obviously I like the long hairstyles more, but I thought it wouldn't have been a big deal. Whereas like Urza, I don't think she should have the short hair because of how her hair connects to her backstory and stuff with Jalal. And we even had the bit at the very end of Alvarez where once Jalal was pardoned, Urza spent a lot more time taking care of her hair and brushing it and just doing more to make it the best shape she could. So it's like her having her hair cut short would be really strange when stuff right now for her between her and Jalal is in a very clear moving forward near the finish line bit. So it's like, why cut her hair short when it's a very key factor between the two of them? I could see Urza having some form of like altered hairstyle, but I don't like the idea of her hair getting cut short. Like out of the three main girls, I think hers like needs to stay long for literal reasons to her story and how her hair has like actual character significance to her. But then her and Misaki were having some pretty nice, just general respectful interactions. Misaki offers to like wash her hair and help her in the bath and says it's her specialty, and she just ends up using spatial magic to do it, which is pretty cool. I imagine that, I guess that'd be the best way to do it. You're just having this stuff go to her, all the different soaps and waters. Because I would assume that if you also could control the soap, then you wouldn't even need to really wash it out beyond the normal process, because you could just instantly remove all the soap from somebody's hair. You don't have that whole thing where you're like trying to wash your hair for 10 extra minutes because you think there's still soap there. But Kiria going from aggressive psycho wanting to chop up and kill Lucy to playful friendly bully is actually, I think, a nice, again, it's done in a way to obviously like clown on Lucy a little bit and fan service her, but that one happens all the time. Kiria's pretty much in the same boat, and Lucy's already done it to her. So I think for between them, one, it's a funny continuing joke between the two of them, but two, I like where it kind of, again, it's evolved where Kiria, again, instead of seeing Lucy as this weak little fodder thing that she's just gonna chop up for fun, as now somebody that is clearly a capable fighter, that she has a teasing friendship level of thing going on with her. Again, I liked it a lot. Kiria is somebody I didn't expect to like as much as I did. I think the only person really in Diablos I'd say is above her is Suzaku. If Scullion would be higher ranked than her in my personal eyes if we got more inside actual stuff with him. But like Kiria's just shown so many different sides and had pretty good character progression since her introduction. That just really made her a good character. And even now, like just her like messing with Lucy, I like a lot that they have their own like little rivalry kind of thing a little bit. Like it's like how between the two of them is like how kind of like Juvia and Lucy would feel, obviously in terms of a comedic one, but this is one actually in terms of also combat and parts in the story. I'm really, really hoping that we either get some form of training session between Lucy and Kiria, because I want to see characters all paired up in some form of training bit or skirmish or some form of like team up. Like all of them, like, hey, we have X amount of time for whatever reason, or maybe like Selene puts them on a training thing where they all have to work together, and Lucy and Kiria are on a team, and maybe it's like where, say, like Laxus and Kieran wouldn't work together. Maybe like out of all of them, Lucy and Kiria actually end up working really well, because it's like Lucy's really smart, Kiria's very direct and capable, but because of like where their relationship developed to, it's like if Lucy like made a call, Kiria would be like, oh yeah, I can understand that, I respect that, and like, no, it's not like something where she would just ignore it like you'd expect. It'd be like she respects Lucy enough to hear like a call out and then be like, yeah, I gotcha, and then go to move for it. I think that'd be really cool. I think that'd be a big plus on both of their characters, but we'll see. Because right now we have gotten some pretty good general interactions in the last two chapters between Fairy Tail and Diablos, which is one of the things I've been really wanting. So some form of grouping up between them, I'm seeing it's still possible. I mean, we still have Lactus and Kieran's bit, continuing on. Urza and Misaki has now moved to this kind of like buddy respect thing where it's like Misaki seems to have this overly bit of like camaraderie with Urza, which makes Urza a little embarrassed, but they seem to still get along. Haku obviously still has a crush on Wendy. Like, you could continue all these, but like have them, all of them progress in each of their groups, and then pair up the other twos, Godshield and Madmole. Figure out what you can do with those. I think that'd be a pretty funny interaction. I think Madmole and Panther Lily talking would be a set of conversations that I never thought that I would see or even thought about, but I would love to see it. Like, just imagine it's like Madmole could be somebody like Ichiya, where he's goofy, but he's actually really cool. And we could have somewhere like at some point they're just chilling, maybe like having some drinks, and Madmole's just throwing back shots, hanging out with them. I think that'd be pretty badass, and it'd be something to really kind of like add again that extra layer to Madmole, because Madmole's goofy, but I'm hoping he ends up kind of more like Ichiya, where he's capable but goofy, but obviously more capable because he's a relevant Dragon Slayer. He should be more capable than you'd expect from Ichiya. But we'll see. There's a lot of hype, and then obviously I don't need to go in and talk about Gray versus Scullion. I think Gray versus Scullion would be really cool though, real fast. I won't go into in depth because like say you group them all up, you would still have in theory, because I thought Misaki maybe would have still like some aggressive, resentful feelings towards Urza, but it seems more of just like, you know what, you got me, fine, see it as it is. I respect you now. We're not in a battlefield sense anymore. She seems pretty cool with it. Whereas, like, Kieran and Lactus clearly would still have the rivalry. I think Gray and Scullion would be really cool if, like, instead of, like, it'd be in between. Like, they would clearly have friction and beef, but they don't hate each other. Like, it not nearly as much as Lactus versus Kieran, but it's like it would build up to some form of beef like that. And maybe they would have a skirmish that eventually, obviously, would end in Gray getting that rebound W, and maybe then they can kind of progress from there, and then they could become buddies. I think it's really cool that all of them seem to have an ally. One thing I really would like to mention as well, because I know some people are talking about this. A lot of people are bringing up the extra Diablos members that were there in the previous chapter. I would really like it if we would... Oh, my dogs are too in the background. I would really like it if we had, say, like, one or two Diablos members join that are that are weaker than anybody in the Fairy Tail group. Like, people that Wendy and Lucy are clearly stronger than, to kind of build a kind of like layer sense of where they're at and these other characters are at, but obviously to also keep in mind that their characters are should be more powerful. Now I think Lucy, I think after the fight with Kyria shouldn't have to run into that similar situation that she's gone into a lot, where she still powerful, but she just couldn't fully keep up with the people around her, and because of that, she was usually running into people that were always stronger than her, that were difficult fights she could overcome, but were always ones, again, that she was going into as the underdog. I would really like it, again, if the next fight that Lucy has would either be Kiri and her as a duo, or, like, Lucy, again, fighting somebody where she is equal to, where it's, like, we go into as, like, a fight of, again, like Natsu and Suzaku round 2, where it's, like, he's going to be able to have something up his sleeve, match him, and it's just going to be like, how's this fight go? Whereas like Lucy versus Kyria and Lucy versus Mimi, she went into them very much the underdog. We'll see, though. Obviously, it's going to be a thing. Maybe with those extra members, they could just be background pieces. I think it'd be really cool if we ended up just getting like a couple extras, just so to meet their interesting and hopefully, I would assume, fun, smaller characters that don't have to be too powerful. Because I think that would also build a little bit on the world, because it's like you have those members of like the Fairy Tail Guild who are, always around. They have their own uses, but at the same time they aren't going to be fighting relevant characters. Like, people that are going to be threats to them are literally going to be foot soldiers, because foot soldiers for the enemy are powerful at their level. So we'll see. It could be, could not be. That's one of those ones I don't expect as much. I'm really hoping for like a team ups between the different groups. duos between each very clearly. Each of them have been set up with some form of counterpart. Oh, these fucking dogs are so loud, my guy. Hey, one second. They're just being loud, right? As I go, they seem to just get even louder. But I'd be like, hey, calm down. Wait till my video's over, and then you guys can go be loud. I know you guys are hyped up about the interactions as well as I am, but we gotta be a little bit civil. But right when things are kind of getting a little calmed down, obviously here comes out Selene. I really like Selene's guild mark just from the fact it looks like it's going to eat her belly button. But Selene comes out and she obviously is going to be setting the tone. She has like a little bit of a funny bit at first where Misaki's help washing her body. Again, I like that Misaki seems very just overly friendly and like willing just to go and do a little extra for anybody who's her ally, but like apparently to her enemies she's just this generic evil villain who just wants to be a bad guy and doesn't seem to take her opponent seriously. But it's like, if you're her ally, she's like anytime that there's like a situation where she's like, oh, you need some help, I got you. I could imagine it'd be like, she's like, oh, you need your food cut, I got you, just one second, come here, give me your knife. Or it's just like you're getting ready to tie your shoes. She just pops up out of nowhere. It's like, hey, I got you. Don't worry about it. Does something with her fingers and ties your shoes for you with spatial magic. I think that's kind of funny. We'll see. Like, that's at least how I'm interpreting her character. I think once we get some more interactions with her, maybe like if she gets like a couple bits and we don't have, like, I really don't want it to be like the next couple chapters, Fairy Tail Guild moves on and Diablo stays behind. I'm really hoping they stay conjoined. I don't think it would make sense for them to kind of just be left in the background for this part of the story and behind us because of obviously Selene. I feel like they have to stay connected. Plus, they're dragon slayers. They aren't just random powerful people. But Selene now wants to pretty much do some exposition. We're gonna get some talking and some bits where she's gone extra, where she's also done some cool stuff. She's like poking the water and she's like using spatial magic or some form of just, I don't know if it would be water magic. She calls it a gate, so I'm guessing she's pretty much using something similar to Aqua Era or something like that, but channeling it through the the water, so it's just her voice. But essentially everybody there can hear her, and she's talking to them and saying like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to pretty much lay out some stuff for everybody, but I want you to know I'm not going to apologize for anything I've done, nor do I regret it. Good. This is one thing that I was adamant of, that you have to always keep in mind of Selene and any of the Dragon God's mentalities. Selene, though, could be bad for some people, could be beneficial for others. Selene is not evil. She just does whatever she wants, and she has the power to back it up and the capabilities to pretty much, again, go wherever she wants to. So what she is, good or bad, is pretty much dependent on her mood, what she wants, and what side of the coin you're on for like how she has to acquire whatever she's trying to acquire. But at the same time, she's also a very powerful dragon, and she's not bound by like the wants and needs and laws of humans. And on top of that, she isn't even really operating for the side of dragons in a way. Like, she's doing it entirely personally for herself. So at that, she doesn't really owe anything to any of these people. And on top of that, people have come after her. Like she only has to like go on to other dimensions really and hide out because humans and again, this isn't humans, but like if you look at it from a side by side, led to and dragons, I guess. Dragons that she doesn't even know led to dragon slayers, and then a rogue dragon slayer from the humans went and slaughtered almost all the dragons. So it's like from her perspective, she has absolutely no reason to where she should have to apologize for the stuff she's done. Like, from her side, it's not like it was a crime, it wasn't bad, it was entirely just stuff that was in the wake of what her mission was. Not even a mission, of just what her desires were. But she's saying how like it wasn't even just Elefseria also that she destroyed. Like, there were many worlds out there that she destroyed, countless before she got to Elefseria. Natsu just being Natsu. I like that Natsu is more like Natsu is more intrigued at what's going on. She's like She says that the more she distorts a world, the more she can see its other face. And I'm wondering if face now has something to do with just the worlds and the gods, and it's like every world has a different style of face. Because it's not just something that she says poetically. Wendy's like, another world's face, and she's like, it's a power hidden in that world. So I'm guessing that it's like something that every world has, because each one we had Alta face and we had face. But Natsu's asking, what power is that? But she's saying it's a weapon defeating the 5 dragon gods that she's been looking for. I'm guessing that one of the worlds has a face that she's looking for, which makes me curious. It's like, does that mean that they're gonna have to go to another world then? Maybe if whatever the weapon that say like Selene wanted is to be acquired, or whenever that point in the story it's gonna happen. Because my guess is that, like, the whole White Legacy, the fact it's called the White Legacy, I'm guessing that it's going to connect to Rebellious and the White Wizard, and that's going to be that point in the story. Because Rebellious has to be a bit before we get, I would assume, to Ignia. Like, it would just be one of those sudden sidetrack things. Like, imagine before the Grand Magic Games with the whole bit when Virgo shows up and it's like, the Celestial Spirit World is in danger. Like, imagine a sudden plot like that, but serious. Like, if instead of Elefseria being this kind of like grab pulled in arc, it's more of like the arc shows up and presents itself as like a request, and then we get over to it. But we'll see. It's one of the, like, there's a lot of neat like little bits again in the works. There's a lot of really kind of interesting things that Mishima has laid out that have really worked in, again, opposing favors, because Diablo seemed like the evil enemy Yules, but no, it's not. And then Gold Owl's like this surprise villain, but Rebellious in the White Wizard are things that we've had in 100 Years Quest, introduced in 100 Years Quest, that we have barely touched upon. And the question is, when are they going to really appear and be relevant? And I feel like the White Legacy and the fact that some weapon that's capable of potentially destroying the dragon gods and having to do with the faces and whatnot. Because also, this is something that I feel like if nobody else brings up, if nobody else brings this up, if I don't bring this up, nobody else will. Wendy is the one that brings up another world's face. This is important. I feel like this panel specifically is not just, oh yeah, I had Wendy do it just to have Wendy do it. Wendy is the one that brought up the connection between face, hands, and Alta face. Wendy was the one that was doing the whole, big brain thinking about all this. So I feel like Wendy being the one to take notice of her bringing up something about, again, face, I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think that's a coincidence at all. But with the dragon gods having a threat to them, I feel like that weapon, and again, White Legacy, the relevant connection that would make sense to me would be Rebellious and the White Wizard at some point getting hands on it or going towards that as their plot point and where that's going to go. Because Igneous is going to have to do apparently more with creating this new age of dragons, and I don't think that a weapon capable of killing dragon gods and whatever Igneous' plan is to start a new age of dragons are the same thing. I imagine he found some other form of forbidden knowledge that was different than what Selene was going for. But they're just talking about that point. They're about the labyrinth and the power that Selene was going for, and she's like saying how obviously going towards the heart, because again, the heart is a really interesting thing in itself. I'm actually really glad that Mishima destroyed it, because it as a concept, not as a conceptual entity, but it as a concept in a story, it means you could find out anything. Think about it like this. If you're in a story, it doesn't matter what story you're into. Put yourself in a story. You are bound by the amount of things known, like, you don't know everything, but in the verse, you could potentially achieve whatever is within your grasp. Like, say you get put into fairy tale, and eventually you go and you achieve some broken, lost magic that you had to find in a book in some abandoned library in a fallen kingdom. It's like, you can get that, but what about magic that there's no record of and there's no history of, there's no way to find it. It happened, it existed, but you would never know about it because there's no record of it. The heart of Elefseria could do that. Something like the way to break Angstram's curse could exist. Like, it could be something like, literally, you have the heart. How do, like, say if Zerif claimed it, he said, how do I break Angstram's curse? The heart could literally tell him some lost, easy secret that just goes, bam, gone. Bam, he's no longer mortal, dies. Or just instant, easy, flawless resurrection of people. Something that could happen, or maybe it even is possible, but humans and dragons or whatever never achieved it. Or maybe somebody achieved it, never told anybody. It's a crazy inverse plot thing. Because, like, imagine it in real life. You could find out cities and kingdoms that had all of their books and again, history destroyed once they were conquered. Think about, like, there are cities, again, and people that nobody in modern day knows the names of because they had everything about them erased from history. So there's no way other than word of mouth that people remembered them, and because they were wiped out, they were forgotten. But you could have this heart ask, like, hey, tell me the name of, all the groups that were wiped out history-wise by, like, the Roman Empire or whatever, whatever crazy conquering land. Bam, now these secrets that were lost in history that nobody knows and nobody could ever have found out. Again, it's a crazy thing to think about. Because think of it literally like, if you're just like, heart, how do I break, how do I obtain the one magic? And it just tells you all the steps. And it's like, okay, now I now know all the crazy, broken, forbidden magic things that nobody else could achieve because I have this godlike information organ right here. It's a really neat thing. It's a neat thing, but at the same time, it's like, it's such a dangerous thing in the story. Because Archive's scary because, in theory, someone like Hibiki could just go and download information and how to do different spells and magic into somebody's head. But he is still limited to what information is in Archive. Then there's Super Archive. Then obviously Elefseria, and then his heart. But the difference between, I would assume, Elefseria and his heart is the heart is such at a higher level that it seems like it just is. It's like literally times internet, or I guess the stellar memory is kind of similar to that, where it is just this. It's essentially like a magic internet, I guess. Really, it's this magic Wikipedia that automatically keeps itself, that nobody could edit or alter, and it always tells you the truth. But Ignia destroyed it, which is, again, a plus, because, again, having such a broken thing like that, and it's literally just in the size of something you can fit in your hand, where somebody could get it and find out any information ever, dangerous. But we know that two things from it. The White Legacy is a thing, and Selene was after. I feel like it's not going to be lost and just going to be a thing that was in passing and will actually get it in connection. The White Legacy, again, I feel like just the naming of it, it's going to end up leading to Rebellious and the White Wizard. And then Ignia stuff is vague, but we just don't know entirely fully what it is. I have my theories on it. I really like the idea of him essentially, like not using essentially McGilty Link, or against, I guess, really just, essentially doing that. Not McGilty Link, but imagine him doing some form of magic that affects people over a large scale and then forces 5th generation dragon slaying magic, or I guess just dragon slaying magic, but I'm thinking like 5th gen Dragon Force specifically, where it rapidly turns somebody into a dragon, and he essentially just creates dragons out of people to bring back an age of dragons. I think that'd be really neat. The only thing I would wonder about that, if he did it directly like that, would, if, say, 2 dragon slayers that have already become dragons, if they mate, would their child become a dragon or a human, or how would it work? Because I actually also have the theory of, like, if a 6th gen dragon slayer, like, what if there's a 6th gen and it's like one of your parents is a dragon or is a dragon slayer post-dragon? Because you can't really count Urza, because Urza had already been conceived before Irene had become a full dragon. She had already been pregnant before she became the full dragon. But imagine, say, Irene was a dragon, turned into a human form, and then got pregnant. Would at that point the human DNA and dragon DNA mix, or would it be, oh, even though she's a dragon, originally she was a human, so it would come out as a human? It's one of those weird things that we were able to narrowly avoid the questions of Urza's birth, because again, Urza was conceived before she became a full dragon. But I don't know. There's weird stuff going on in those bits. I can't wait to see what Ignea's plan is, but we'll see. Because like imagine if it's like that. If it's like, even if you become a dragon, your children will be human. Because then it'd be like Ignea's plan only works for one generation, and it's like you have a bunch of dragons, but then all their children would be humans. I assume not. I assume that if two fully dragonified humans bred, they would have some form of dragon altered baby, I would assume. But yeah, we have Elefseria as well show up. I wish we got more aside from the males. Elefseria, though, he definitely gives off, again, more of the sus nature, but I think it's less of a villain thing in this chapter, and maybe that's what Mishima's going to be setting up. Maybe he was using Elefseria just to have a little bit of that odd nature towards feeling like the White Wizard, but I still really like the idea of him being the White Wizard and him being this villain, and we have this kind of old dragon slaying wizard as a big upcoming enemy. We'd have to figure out how he would become strong enough to oppose people like Selene and Ignea, but that could be, a reveal for later. But he's just having a back and forth with Selene, and again, I fully agree with Selene in this bit. Like Selene really calls it as it is, because I'll go pretty much more towards like their set wording, but he's like, never did I imagine to really speak with one of the 5 dragon gods. That is one thing I'm just like, why? You never thought maybe you would have to go like just do it yourself? And like I get like he obviously like he had trouble with Dorkmag, but I feel like there should have always been that idea in his mind of having to go out and fight, do it again, pretty much. Like if I can't find somebody, like I've done it before, maybe I can do it again, kind of thing, and like train and get stronger on that and try and actually accomplish it, or just like maybe seek one out and try and like communicate with him. Definitely say like that's one of the things I feel like is really sus though about Elefseria, because it makes it seem more like he's like, imagine initially he was gonna do it by himself, but he got hurt and he's like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to risk it again, but I need to kill them. So he ends up opening the quest not as a like ask for help, but more of trying to recruit people to get a job done he can't, in a more of a like, I'm going to just send these guys off to their death until they can accomplish it for me. Like, he doesn't actually care. That's why he offers a wish, something so grand and so, like, limitless to entice people. Because I think that would make a lot of sense why he'd be like, I never would expect to have spoken to one of the 5 dragon gods. Because maybe in his mind, he's like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not risking it. I'll make these other guys do it. I'll just pretend to pay people and, like, they'll go off and die or start accomplishing it. Because I think that would make a lot of sense if at that point he was thinking about it entirely as a manipulator who wouldn't even bother trying to interact with them, but now he's at a spot where he is. And he's kind of forced to, because I think that would make sense of why he's kind of here now. And on top of that, he has people who can contend enough with Selene that he probably feels more confident. Elefseria, to me, again, I still feel like there's something about him that he's not telling us. And the way that he is in this scene and this interaction makes me feel like he is, again, some form of villain in disguise. Because if he's leading a cult, I think it would make sense of why he has this kind of like hard set, non-diverting mentality over this situation. Because he's like saying like, how many innocent people have you killed? And Selene brings up, okay, yeah, but how many innocent dragons have you killed? And that's the same thing. That to me is like, and you can see it in Kiria and Misaki too, because they're both kind of like, she's got a point. Both of them can see that, because that is very true. There were dragons that were hunted down that didn't want to, that obviously just wanted to go live their lives. There are dragons that didn't participate in, a lot of the crazier things in the past, but they ended up getting hunted down by Acnologia and killed. And now these other ones were hunted down and killed by members of Diablos, people that were formed because of Elefseria's guild. And on top of that, again, you got to think about it from Selene. If it wasn't for Elefseria forming the 100 Years Quest, then Diablos never would have formed, and one of Selene's sons never would have been killed. So there's definitely, there's definitely bad blood on both sides, but there's definitely justification on both sides of really how you look at it. And Selene again, right afterwards, she's like, you know what, you and I are in the same boat, aren't we, Elefseria? And this is what I mean. Selene is the one looking at it as, yeah, I killed innocent people, but how many innocent dragons have you killed? She is challenging directly as a counterbalance to it. And then she's like, we're kind of in the same spot based off of, really the different. She's laying it out obviously as it is, as a perspective based thing. The dragons have done bad stuff, but so have the humans. They've had conflict, but she's like, you know what, we're kind of like similar in that. And he's like, you think I can accept that coming for you? And she brings up a great point. She's like, why is it only fine if humans can kill dragons? So for Selene, it just makes so much sense that, again, she looks like she's not the victim, but she's more here as a sympathetic and understandable character, whereas Elefseria just seems to be, yeah, where he just seems to be entirely negative. And I think that is going to be more of a tell going out. Because at the end of the chapter, when she's saying how she's going to be, I would assume, starting to give us some lore exposition over the last 100 years. But Elefseria's whole bit, he just still seems more of like this stone-faced, not caring. And I feel like that's going to be a bit telling up and coming. But anyway, other than that, tell me your thoughts about this chapter and tell me your thoughts about this bits. And do you feel the same, like, suspicious ways of kind of the formatting of this chapter that I do? I'd like to hear your comments below. But other than that, thumbs up the video for the like button, subscribe. I'm going to check out their videos. And thank everyone who's already subscribed. Thank you for listening. Bye.